Hello everyone, this is Anne and thank you for signing up for the first of 3 video series on how you can identify simply and easily a toxic man that may be in your life. So this is the first series. I will be doing 2 others, and the 3 areas I look at are hand analysis, face reading and also simple psychology. So this is the first one, and I'll go through a few signs by looking at the hand of how you can identify whether the person you're with is maybe selfish or maybe a taker, may have a narcissistic personality disorder that you need to be aware of. Now, approximately 80% of the population are sort of in between, not good, not bad, but okay. You get perhaps 10% that are outstanding, that have of good character, integrity, and then you have the bottom 10% approximately that are really you need to avoid and get out of the relationship as soon as you can. Just a little bit of background on palmistry. It goes back over 3,000 years. It was and still is studied in India, in China, ancient Egypt, and of course the gypsies use this technique. Now, which hand do you use? Really, the answer is both. Now, the dominant hand, which is usually the one you write with, usually reflects your outer self, who you are and how you present yourself to the world. The left hand is your inner self. Now, it has to do, the inner self is the self that you hide from the public, or how you really are in terms of emotions and feelings. Now, a lot of people say, this is hocus pocus. How can you tell, lines on the hand, whether of a person's character? And what I say to them, it really is about left and right hand thinking and how our thoughts then transmit lines on the hand. And there's a technique, and indeed many techniques in which to do this. There's a Hindu method, there's the Western method, there's a Chinese method, but really they're to some extent more or less similar. So how do you know whether you're with someone who may be selfish? You might be wondering right now, why does the man in my life behave the way he does? Is it me? Is it them? Should I stay? Should I go? So here are some simple signs. Now, I've put on the board here a simple picture of a hand, and the first sign you need to look at is the heart line. Now, the heart line is this line here, the uppermost part of the hand. And that line tells us how we emotionally connect and how we feel and how we respond to emotions. What you need to be wary of is a line that might be short. And when I say short, it finishes under this middle hand here, this middle finger here. And if it is like this one here, and it's short and it finishes under here quite abruptly and doesn't have branches, then you might be with someone who's more receptive in love, not a giver, might be a little bit selfish, a taker, and really someone, when you see this with no branches, you might see heart lines that branch up in different shoots. You know that person might be emotionally not very well developed. Also, the clarity of the line. You want a heart line that is deep and strong and doesn't have lots of bubbles and chains. You might see lots of chains in a line, or lots of downward offshoots that are coming out of the line downward. That can show someone who might be quite flirty and also fickle and quite changeable emotionally. Now, one other sign that you need to look for is also this finger here, which is what they call the Mercury finger. Now, the Mercury finger, as you know, Mercury was the Roman god, a messenger god. It's all about communication and how people communicate the language of expressiveness and emotions, but also sexuality. If this finger, if this finger, especially the top phalange, is bent and it looks like a claw, it bends in like this and it looks like a claw, it's best to avoid this type of man. It can show someone that could be potentially quite deceitful. A little curve is not a bad thing. It just shows someone's quite persuasive, probably a good salesperson, but just watch that trait. Another one that you need to be look out for is whether there's a cross here on the mound. This mound here is called the Mound of Mercury. Or you might actually see a grill, which is like a, you know, like a hash or a net on this mount. Now that can show someone also that can be quite deceitful and not honest. Just to give you some personal experience, I dated a man many years ago who had, just going back to the heart line, that had a heart line like this. He was very selfish. He only thought of himself. He didn't give, he took. He was also quite deceitful. He didn't lie overtly, but he lied by not telling the whole truth. And I can tell you from experience, what you're looking for in a man, ideally, is a nice long heart line, and particularly if it comes into this area here, and if it sweeps up, you know, comes up like it curves up, not in between this line, this finger here, but if it curves up in between this, the pointer finger and the middle finger, you know that you're with someone who's very demonstrative in love, is very expressive with their feelings. And if that's what you're looking for, then that's what, in a man, that's what you should be wary of. So there you go. It's just the heart line and a few little signs that you need to look out for when you're dating, or whether you're with a man. Just sneak and have a look without giving it away that you are looking. This technique gives you a shortcut and can determine whether you're also compatible. It's not just about looking at his hand, but it's looking at your hand and seeing whether over time that person might be impacting you negatively. So that's it for now. Thank you for joining me. In my next video, I'll be talking a little bit about face reading and also the language of expression and how you can tell whether you're with someone who might be a liar. So I look forward for you to join me then. Thank you very much. Goodbye.